Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by PILMA. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure of having Seth Price, who is the founding partner and business backbone of Price Benowitz, a law firm in Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland area, and also the founder and CEO of BluShark Digital. And, you know, Seth is truly an amazing person. He has grew at law firm from like 2 lawyers to 40 lawyers in less than a decade, just killing it. And then he got so good at getting cases and growing his law firm on digital that he formed his own digital company. And now he's I think he's taken over the market for lawyers in that area and is really doing a bang up job for lawyers all across the country. So we want to talk. I got him to agree to come on the show. He's actually down in Florida, taking some time with his family to get away from all the snow up in the DC area. And I got him to agree to take a little time out of his sunning to come here and talk to us about some different things on digital marketing, what's on people's mind. We want to talk about LSA ads, local service ads, and also maybe a new mindset to be thinking about on digital marketing. So thank you so much, Seth, for taking time to be with us here today.
Well, I appreciate it. As you know, I'm a big fan of you and of PILMA. A big influence on building my own firm and now an agency. That the network you've put together and the content is second to none. So, and I, as a person who not only has attended but actually won a door prize, it was the 2nd anniversary of taking my son to the Super Bowl, courtzy of PILMA. So,
well, that's right, you did that. Yeah, I saw that on Facebook the other day. That's right, man.
Yeah, so that was a good time. But yeah, I'd love to spend a few minutes. I get a lot of calls from people in your herd and beyond on LSAs, and there's a handful of lawyers that are in, and that's great, and it should be. It is a new product that Google put out, right? So historically, we've had paid ads, Google ads at the top, a map pack in the middle for the last many years, and then organic below that. And Google's like, hey, we want to make more. And they came up with this new Google screen ad, and it's fascinating. So we first heard about these about 2 years ago. Google was trying to solve a problem, which was in the home improvement space, locksmiths, plumbers. There were all these very dubious players out there preying upon people. So they started a place where you could get screened, and there was a guarantee. It was called Google Guaranteed. And, it made sense, but, they said, hey, these guys like the pay-per-call model. Lawyers are already buying the pay-per-call model. Let's test it out. So over the last 6 months, they beta tested it in a couple markets in just a limited number of practice areas, not PI. But over the last 6 months or so, they've rolled it out for lawyers, right? So it's now, it's a Google screened local service ad. It's at the top. It's very prominent. It's a pay-per-call. So you're not paying for clicks, you're paying per call with some form, very rudimentary form of getting credit for calls that aren't really leads, but that's not perfect yet. But it's in infancy. And I look at like a drug dealer trying to get you hooked. It's very cheap. So that if there is a intersection of your practice area and local service ads right now, it is not going to last for long. Google is not the business of just selling you cheap calls at below market. You're paying just about as much for a call as a click, which is crazy. That what they have allowed for is a cost per call model, which will certainly in an auction go up over time, but the process of getting in. So if you're in, great. Now the question is making sure you stay on top of it as that new categories open up. If they add additional pull downs for subsets, maybe, if they get to premises liability right now, we might have med mal and personal injury and others, but as they open those up, those categories, very, very powerful. And for those people that had never played the organic game, but only the paid game and jumped into this, reviews are featured as one of the few things that there's a picture, a name, reviews, number, and score. And so all of a sudden, Ken, all these people that ignored reviews because they were doing pay-per-click, all of a sudden it's front and center.
Yeah, I know. And, our PILMA people, I was able to find out about this through people like you before it was really known, and we actually got people signed up before Google actually put it out on their website. We were able to get a lot of our people in, and I'll just be honest with you, that was back in August, and in September and October, all our members that did it killed it. I mean, killed it. I mean, like, we're getting, PI cases for $150.
It was crazy, right?
I mean, it was like where it's usually costing them 2,000.
Right.
Like
And
you
so
said,
now
they were getting calls for what they were for less than what they were having to pay for a click through.
exactly. It was a gift. There's no other way of putting it.
Yeah.
As more people got in,
Yeah, it's changed.
you couldn't get, it's still not as expensive, but you
No.
can't get the volume. You'd want, if you could, you'd put it, but what's going to happen in a minute, they say, hey, instead of $150, who wants 200? Who wants 250? Next thing you know, it's going to be 1,000, 1,500 on your market. Like, so I have no doubt that this is the very beginning, but for those who got in early, God bless. And what we saw was part of it was this getting through this screening process. And smaller firms, a Pilma member I'm a big fan of, has broken off from his father's practice. Very simple. It's just him, put it in. There was no hiccups. If you have a legacy firm with a bunch of history on it, some of those firms took a little while to get through the screening. And so a lot of the little guys had an advantage for once, in that they were able to get through the screening quickly, whereas other people, it took a little bit longer, and it's still clunky. It's one friend, who's a friend of Pilma. He was trying to get in, and in Connecticut, they were saying, well, we don't see you listed on the state bar. And it turns out they were looking at the voluntary association, not the mandatory one. I mean, just crazy nonsense. So history is written by the victors. Those that got in early, great. You got amazing ROI. It was a gift. And it's still, if you can get the volume, now it's about sculpting to make sure that you're pushing you're strategically saying, hey, they're only going to give me so much. How can I make sure I maximize it by cutting off stuff that I don't want and pushing for the stuff that I do?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that, a little bit more detail. So, one thing, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you know this better than I do, but the way I understand it is there's three main things they're looking at for is where you get it. You got three at the top, and then you got other, but really if you ain't in the top three, you're not going to get that many calls, the way I understand it. But they kind of flip it around. I think they look at location, and then they look at how many reviews you got, I guess. And then they look at your ability to answer the calls when they call.
Right.
And they look at your review, I guess, not just your business reviews, but also your LSA reviews. Am I right or am I wrong on that?
In theory, that's like, there's a lot of stuff that's being built out. It is not a great interface. It's being done through a third-party contractor is what we've heard. It's not like Google mothership doing this. The technology isn't there. It is certainly clunky, and things that are supposed to be done. I could say, yes, reviews are there. We have some LSAs with no reviews that are doing fine, and people are calling in. And it's not like some people are looking at reviews and some people are not. So like, would I want to have 100 reviews rather than 3? Yes. But it is right now, like, as you said, like a random sort of like a gold rush. Right now, everything's good. It will not last. So to me, by the time this is finished, all the stuff you're talking about that in theory should be there will be there. Right now, they're just trying to place ads and put them there.
Yeah.
But as it gets more competitive, I have no doubt. Like, I'll give you an example. Right now, and I saw this in one case, somebody with 3 stars as an average, which in law is, you have to work pretty hard to get 3 stars. My guess is the Pilma average is north of 4.5.
It is.
Again, when you have a family law firm, there are always more upset people, or the other side is getting at you. Insurance companies aren't giving you negatives. So the opposition generally isn't hating on you. So for most PI lawyers that care about their business and run it like a business within your herd, they're going to have decent scores. So if you have a 3.0, you got to be trying, in my opinion, right? You have to have a pretty broken business model. So they're showing it for 3.0 and above. At some point, I got to think that they're going to turn the knob and say, we're not showing a 3.0 equally to a 4.9 or a 4.7. That said, I've been, how long it takes to get there. There's a lot of spam, for instance, in the map below. Lots of spam still works there. It shouldn't. And we're told like a year and a half from now, it may not, but it's been a lot of years. And so certain things you're waiting on. My attitude is, get in early, do it right, but continuously monitor what is, like, you need to know what moves the needle. So there are certain
Yeah.
techniques, what I call gray areas, where, if you were advising somebody who's starting a law firm, if they put injury in the name of the firm and it's registered with the state that way, until Google changes its local methodologies, the 3-pack, the map pack, that's the name of the term you want to come up for. Huge advantage. Now, if you just spam a name where you're like, in car accident injury and medical malpractice lawyers of Dayton, like, yeah, that's not going to work. But if you sort of are able to, in a non spammy way, brand your firm with a keyword, that works. So how each of these things we're sort of anticipating. My attitude is continue to use best practices, but always be looking at what is working and take strategic, reaches based on risk calculus of a given client or a given lawyer.
Yeah, because I mean, I've done some homework on this, and I've pulled up some searches where somebody with 21 reviews is outranking somebody with 1,200 reviews.
What are you talking about, the paid or the organic?
The paid, the LSA ads.
Right. Well, there. I think it's more an egalitarian. I go back to, it's my own. This is not my own take is, it is more like a drug dealer. So yes, the guy with a big bank account is getting some of it, but so is the little guy to get him hooked on it. So they're not just saying, hey, you have all those reviews, you're golden. They want money across the board, because eventually they're going to want that auction to work, and the auction doesn't work if it's just the big guy who's hooked on it.
Yeah, because I know I saw one of our Pilma members who just hired you in like last 2 or 3 weeks, and he was at the top of the LSA ads with like 21 reviews. And I said, how did that happen?
Well, look, to a certain extent, I'd like to say that we're geniuses, but part of it is, look, and part of it is what I have seen is, and you see this, let's go back to what we talked about. We'll take the organic for a while. What Google will do is they will give people a shot. So if you place it right, if you do everything right, and you see this in organic, they're going to show pages once in a while that are not the normal perennial favorites. And recently, I've seen a lot of sort of upsetting where the guys who have been there for years pushed out. So they want to say, hey, we're going to put this one up there. And I know this in my market. When I first started, there's a guy from about 12 years ago. This guy's never touched his website, I think, since like 2005. And we beat him. It's there. But every once in a while, I see it shoot up for a minute. And then Google's like, hey, we're going to give this a shot. Do people love this website? No, goes back down. And so what they're doing is, we got this guy in, it's there. We obviously know what we're doing, so we can position it. But they're also, as you mentioned, testing it. Are these calls answered? How is the user experience? And so we're seeing that if you do things right, you're there. And the question, like anything else, if you're in the minors and you get your one shot at the big leagues, you better get a hit. So we're it's all of that. And so, as you know, and again, you preach this at Pilma, as a digital agency, I feel that it is, if somebody looks at you as a vendor, like, and it's a one-way street, I'm paying you, go make this work, it does not work nearly as well as if it's a partnership. We look at our clients as partners. And using this example, if this guy who's been a historic referral-based firm doesn't have his act together and doesn't answer the phones and doesn't give, and doesn't close that loop, this is going to be a failed experiment. So that is why, whether it's through your masterminds or through the summit, when people are getting this great information, you better go home and implement it, because it's not, if you write a check and you get the phone to ring, but you don't have the system in place at your firm to monetize it, you're not doing it for your health. You're doing it because you're trying to get those cases in to get ROI and build your bottom line. And I feel like that's one of those things that, like, you got to be careful what you ask for, because once that's done, are you in fact going to be able to squeeze the juice? And if not, why are you wasting your money?
Yeah. So how do you think, what do you think? So you think that down the road, and we've talked about this before, that sooner or later, and I agree with you, that they're going to go, these LSA ads now, they kind of got a internal structure for how high they'll let you bid. They kind of got a cap.
Right.
But unlike pay-per-click, but I agree with you. I think I said this to start with. I said it's just like a drug dealer coming in town. He's giving away free samples so you can get everybody hooked.
Exactly.
You
And
know,
you
and I
talk
think
about
that,
a cap. I look at it when I my sports law class in law school. The NBA salary cap was more like a yarmulke. It was very soft. To use a Jewish reference here. It was not a hard cap. They are going to make their money. Like this is all about bottom line, and it's valuable real estate. And look, you go to a show, even at a PILMA conference or you go to MTMP, it's all about lead gen. Google knows that there's so much money there. The truth is, this idea of Google Screen for lawyers is kind of nonsense in that you have a bar license. And again, they're sort of to go and try to sort of, they could get rid of spam, but there's not like locksmiths where they're fraudulent people all over the place.
yeah,
In the 3-pack, generally you're getting a law firm. There's spam they could get rid of. And so I look at it like, come on, guys. And if they really cared, they'd allow you to take your green check mark from up there, put it in the 3-pack. To me, that's the next, because otherwise they really aren't pushing out spam. You've done a background check, and yet you can't demonstrate that in your organic map listing.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, I yeah, I think it's going to be an auction for sure, and I think that the maps will probably go away. I don't know. Maybe they'll stay there.
Well, but at the same time, that is how we find stuff. I mean, everything we do and look at in life. So, if they take away the maps, which are, we think of as lawyers in our world, but when you're looking for a whatever gas station, coffee house, those that visual that shows you what's nearby is
Yeah,
extremely valuable. And like the whole point is they got to keep you coming back. And if they get rid of the value, they know. So I don't see that, disappearing. The question is how much becomes monetized and how much is not.
yeah. I didn't know this. Like for plumbers and locksmiths, it was guaranteed. I
Right.
noticed they didn't guarantee the
Yeah,
lawyer
you
side.
noticed that, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
They call it screen versus guaranteed.
But I think to a certain extent it probably is, and I look at it this way. Again, it was a $2,000 guarantee. It was not a $20 million guarantee. But I think that in general, and I can talk for lower dollar PI, if somebody's really pissed, our worst headaches over the last 10, 15 years, 12 years has been, angry low dollar PI clients. If somebody's not happy here, it sucks because we did all this work. Here's your $1,000, buddy. Like, it to me, it becomes, we live in a glass house. The review is so powerful. And to me, to have one less angry person out there. And so while they don't have the guarantee, I think that will effectively become, most lawyers who are part of the sophisticated world that you play in are not looking there to screw people over, because if they do, they won't be in business long.
That's why I do everything with PILMA money back guarantee, because a mentor of mine told me a long time ago, actually it was Dan Kennedy. He said, if somebody's moaning and groaning and bitching and griping, just give them their money back and then ban them, ban them from your world. He said, but you don't want to get into this stuff. You don't want, and this was even before reviews, Seth. He said, you just don't want to deal with it. Lawsuits and FTC and different things like that. He said, it's just not worth it. Just give them money back and block them out of your life,
No, and look, we've talked about it both from the attendee. I remember it was 10 years ago. I just sent you a picture. I was cleaning out. I found my binder from the first PILMA I attended way back in the day, and I remember that was one of the things when I saw this, old clunky website that said "Come to Ken's event," and it was like, oh, if that if the guys want to put a money back guarantee on there, it's one touch point that it's not snake oil. That you're if it's complete crap, you're going to get your money back. And I feel like that was, again, you've been around long enough that that's not an issue anymore. Most people have touch points into you, but I went to it not having a lot of touch points, I remember, and that was a big deal. And look, you've talked to me about a vendor in particular who gave you a hard time. You're like, look, you're not happy, here's your money. Well, good luck. And it's amazing how quickly tunes change, particularly in the repeat player space.
Yeah. I mean, it's not worth it to me. It's just like, I don't know. So how long do you think? It's hard to tell how long it's going to take for all this stuff to settle down with LSAs.
And look, I think the less important part is not guessing the time. It's taking advantage while it's there. Again, who cares? Like, again, I could give you a number, sound like I'm smart, but nobody has any idea. It's not a question of if, it's when.
Yeah.
And so my feeling is, and it's two things. One, that if you have a PPC budget, making sure that you max out your LSA, because you can't spend all of your money right now for most people within the more sophisticated
Yeah.
crowd.
No.
And if you're not, the big thing is if you're not doing them, I don't want to you at least considering it. If you're not, it's and again,
It
as
is
you're seeing,
it's competitive with the PIs, but listen, I'm talking to some criminal and domestic lawyers, and they're still killing it with it, getting cases for hardly death because evident. I mean, PI lawyers usually are a lot more aggressive and a lot more on top of things, marketing than the
right.
than the other
Look, you've
practice areas.
seen this yourself. You've tried to open the tent, and it's not like they come rushing in the same way.
Nah, no, not at all, not at all. So, well, thank you for that update. So now I want to go back. I want to talk to something we were talking about earlier is the mindset about, I have people all the time come to me and say, I heard this SEO guy, it's been 90 days, it's been 4 months, I'm not getting anywhere. And it's like, and maybe they're in like San Francisco or New York or LA or Atlanta or Dallas, a big city. And I look at them, I say, man, it's going to take a year at least. At least.
At least. So
You know?
I think it's all about expectations, market. I mean, that's why it's not a widget that I can say, hey, something costs this much for this market. And what I'm seeing more and more, and you and I have talked a lot about it, is there two strategies that I think that work. Let's stay to the PI world for now. And it's not that it doesn't work in the non-PI space, but PI has got, as you mentioned a minute ago, most sophisticated business lawyers, heavy money. They're used to spending money on TV. They're now spending money on digital. So, I don't want to say go big or go home, because that's I don't want to be crass, but what I would say is understand where your budget is at, what you've done, and the likelihood that you want to stay with this for a period of time. So what we've done is divided the world. There are people that are only going to be, that don't have the budget to fight downtown. There are major markets where we have friends of ours here who spend, if clients paying $30,000 a month for organic, crazy numbers, right? And clearly they've been doing it for years, so they're getting something for it, right? That said, if you're not in that world and you're in a major competitive market, the better answer, in my opinion, is to go to the suburbs, pick a few locations, put your stake down, build the authority of your site, get your ROI through a couple different offices in the suburbs, and get ROI, because it will take less time. If you're in Manhattan, you're saying, hey, why am I not ranking in form? Like you're kidding yourself, and you're not, like, you never went in understanding the value proposition. So again, do you occasionally, like the client you sent us recently, we talked, that came through Pilma recently, that had some great success quickly? Yes, but that's not like typical, right?
That's exception.
Right, that's the exception. So normally, when you do this, it is building an asset, and once you have it, it's extremely powerful. It can be adjusted. So you say, hey, I want to go to comp. You can add comp to it. You can add SDI. Once you have authority, you can pivot, you can add offices, you do many, many different things. But if you're trying to go against people in a major metro, which is saturated, to me, and I'm seeing it even in the last couple of years, even since the Super Bowl, a couple of years ago, what I'm seeing is what used to be, and look, to your credit and others' credits, lawyers are more and more educated. They see the possibility. TV ROI is the cost per lead is going up. And so what we're seeing in a lot of major markets is what used to be able to do it, let's say under $10,000 to get into those markets, that's just not a thing anymore. And while it works, this is the piece that nobody will hear, that if you have less resources to spend, it will take you longer to get to that point. And the problem is people get bored, or they don't see ROI. You're sucking wind. The flip side of this is, if you don't bet on the right horse and you're dedicating, let's say in a major market, $15,000 or $20,000 a month, the question is, you got to make sure that it's actually being done. So most people spending that are self-aware enough to say, where's my monthly report? What links are being built? Because I've seen from people in the space, somebody comes to me and says, hey, this isn't working. It's been X number of months or a year or whatever. And I'm like, let's look at it. And there are no backlinks built. It's not rocket science, Ken. It's content and it's links. There's how you put them in. There's the levels of links. It's all that stuff. But if you're not building links, and that's why some of the major sort of public companies that do this, they sell SEO, but if you're not building original content that's authoritative, and you're not building links, you're not doing SEO, there's no chance it's going to move the needle. They're just pumping PPC in, and hopefully you get an ROI and stay. And if you don't, you leave. But that's the biggest frustration, is that, if you is that you want people to sort of get that if you give this money, there's going to be almost like when you do paid search, you're like, here's my money, take your percentage for managing it, and I want the rest going to Google. And it's like that with search. If you say, hey, you're giving me a chunk of change per month, let me take, I don't look at it this way, but here's the management fee. Everything else is going into labor to move the needle for you. When that happens, that's when real things happen. And like many things, when you look at Google's guidelines on paid search, and you look at some of the largest national big boy players, they're allowed by Google to take up to 50 cents on the dollar of the money you give them for paid search and keep it. So the game that I see played a lot by the biggest boys, not the people that are generally regulars at your conference, because you over the years, most of the bad players have thinned out. But for the big national players, very often they're selling an SEO package that's nominal. But if you're not building content, not building links, what are you getting? Then you have your PPC management fee. Combine the PPC management fee with the non-existent SEO, and it's damn close to 50%, somewhere between 40 and 50% margins for them, where you're leasing a website and you're getting very expensive PPC. And that is sort of like where you're like, okay, putting that aside, finding the right person who knows what they're doing, and then investing and getting a realistic time frame. Nobody can guarantee it, but it is resources in. And to me, if you don't have the risk tolerance or the cash flow to build that asset organically, play in the suburbs, because you're going to get ROI. You have the authority of your site will build. And a couple of years later, if you say, you know what, I really love this, I'm getting ROI here, now I want to pivot to downtown, it will happen much faster than if you sort of plow straight at it and don't have any other way to monetize that monthly payment over.
We lost you that last little bit.
Oh, I was going to say that I don't know how far back, but basically, if you as you're building this asset, having understood expectations of what it takes to get there, and if you don't put enough in, it will take long enough that you'll either get bored or it won't pop, because until you get to the top, it's not there. And that's why I say to somebody, if you're in a market which is saturated and you're not willing to pony up the amount needed to move the needle, play in the suburbs, build your authority, and then if you so choose a couple of years later, pivot and then work downtown. But it's not like this is 15 years ago where anything works. Again, It's an educated market, and you need to be strategic and have expectations that 4 months in, it's just not going to be moving the needle.
Well, and that's with everything. I mean, it's like TV. When I went in, TV in 1997, I was getting cases. I went from like 20 cases to 120 cases in like 90 days.
Wow.
And now it takes 6 months to start getting really a good, and you got to spend a lot of money. I mean, I was like number 2. You'd have to be in the top 3, and that's not going to happen overnight anymore. It's just like you said earlier, cost per case has gone up in TV. It still works, but it's just more costly because more people in it. Just like more people, I remember 10 years ago when we first had our masterminds, we had a couple of lawyers in there, and they were killing it because even the TV lawyers, they didn't know about it, and they were getting all these trucking cases there, just cheap. Like they might be spending $30,000 a year, and they were getting, 10, 20, catastrophic cases, and of course everybody's caught up. It's like in everything else, it just takes longer sometimes. But they were under the radar, and they just killed it. I mean, for years, before everybody figured out what the deal was. And it's just like this LSA ads. I mean, the gap sure has gone down, though. I mean, as far as people figuring out stuff. I mean,
and I think that's one of the things that I think important to discuss, because this comes up at Pilma, and you've seen this over the years. There's always the bright, shiny object.
Yeah.
And, and it's one of the things that, again, I don't want to be, you always want to be looking at what's next. And LSA is very important. But how many people came to you over the last 8 years and told you that you were going to make your fortune in geofencing? And it was like the number of guys who showed up and did this. And there was always, some gimmick and it's like, look, again, not that may not work, and not that there's some guy who can give you a success story, but I can give you 12 names of people that I saw walking through Pilmo over the years, pitching geofencing, that were complete nonsense. And
Yep.
so it's balancing. In the LSA thing, you want all in because it's an actual viable piece. But let's say you weren't the first guy to geofence and you waited till you sort of saw somebody else with a proof of concept. I always say, give me a reference. Who have you hit a home run for on geofencing? And, that it becomes the real players disappear very quickly within your listserv. People could say, hey, who's had a good or bad experience? Not that one bad experience, but like at least give me somebody. And again, it gets nefarious because then there's plants and this and that, and the piece that I dislike. And again, when I have my own, whether it's been one of your masterminds or when I talk to my friends, I set a rule, which is you can't talk about something you just started. You got to give it 6 months.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, it's like dating, like a date. Oh, this is amazing. I'm doing this. Well, okay. Does it make money? I know you. So how many times at the masterminds, and not just yours, anybody's, everybody wants to brag about what they've just done, having no idea if it works or not.
Right.
That to me is, like, we know LSAs work. Yes. But when you have whatever that bright, shiny object is, and knowing that as you spend money on those bright, shiny objects, it takes away from the resources that it takes to do what we know works. And so it's definitely a pull and tug. So I know that's something you're aware of. And I think it's probably one of the things that I see lawyers struggle with the most. Our personality, particularly in the PI space, is to be, tilting at windmills and going for stuff. But, it's like Vegas. Somebody says, how'd you do for the weekend? You give them your up or down number. Did you include all the money you spent walking to dinner and dropping money at the table? What about, late night, you finally did something before you went to sleep? And so there's all of that to get true ROI. When you get rid of that stuff, very often it's not quite as desirous as you may sort of have from your pro formas.
Yeah. Nobody likes to admit defeat. I mean, that's just, well, nobody does. But I just call them learning experiences, learning what doesn't work. I've always been one to try new stuff, but I really think, Seth, that I'm seeing it. I think you'll see a lot of lawyers go back to the basics. Everybody's chasing that elusive silver bullet, which there is no silver bullet. We know it's just, grounded principles, just like the SEO stuff. Like you said, you can try all this other stuff, but really it comes down to SEO is nothing but links and great relevant content. You can spice it up, call it any way you want it. That's what it gets down to. And really, when it comes down to it, it's all about relationships and building it. People hire lawyers they know, like, and trust. And how can you do that?
And that's it. That's what it comes down to, right? So like the web is great, but it is definitely, the business itself. Once they're in, will those people become the gift that keeps on giving? Because that gives you ROI.
Yeah. And I think people, listen, I think the websites, you got to have it, because people are going to go check you out now before they even pick up the phone and call you, just to see. They want to see your videos. They want to see what you sound like. They want to see if you got any. They want to see what your reviews are. They want to see, see what kind of person you are. They want to check you out.
But once they're in, can you get? It's a whole nother discussion. Can you get your sausage making to the point where the person comes back as the raving fan?
Yeah.
And that's like a whole nother chapter for another day. But it goes, you got to get the phone to ring. You still need the intake. But if the person doesn't walk away as a raving fan, you see these books behind you. A lot of them cover this. That
that one right there. Yeah, right there. I say there's three different. You got before representation, during representation, and after representation. 3 stages of marketing. And everybody's always worried about the first stage, before representation. And then there's a few more that talk about, they're more about client service, really doing a good job. But man, so many people forget about that after representation, and they just think the people are going to remember them. But like you said, that's for another day. I can get into a 4 or 5 hour discussion. I know that stuff like SEO. that I feel real comfortable with. I mean, and I've done it the hard way. I mean, I built I had a hell of a referral system when I had my firm. I mean, and not from lawyers and doctors, from past clients. It really was big. Well, anyway, anything else you want to share with our
No,
listeners and
I mean, look,
viewers?
I'm excited. I'm excited for Pilma back in person. It'd be back
Yeah,
at the Ritz. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
yeah.
that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, and you're going to be presenting and helping me MC a little bit, and that's going to be September 29th through October the 2nd down in wonderful New Orleans at the
Yeah.
Ritz-Carlton. And we've got rooms, believe it or not. And I was having a meeting with my marketing team today. I said, we need to let people know that we are getting rooms at the Ritz-Carlton for $250 a night in September and October.
That's
unheard.
insane. Exactly. Because normally if you're in the middle of summer and it's awful. Like this is a place that could be $600 to $1,000 a night,
Yes.
in season.
Yeah, those rooms were like, $500 to $1,000 a night, and we're getting them for $250. And we got them locked in, and we got basically the whole hotel is ours for those 4 days. So
I got to tell you that the gumbo at that restaurant in the hotel is some of the best. They do a couple things really well, but it's my favorite thing to have first when I get there.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much. People want to get up with you, Seth. How's the best way for them to
I'm first of all, to this group, don't feel like you have to call because you want to buy something. But happy to review a website if you want that done. But if you just got little technical questions or what have you, feel free to reach out. My cell 347-661-9999. But Seth at BluShark Digital, BluSharkDigital.com. People can find me. I'm on socials. And Ken, thanks again. I really appreciate you having me on and appreciate everything over the years.
No, thank you, my friend. Thank you. You've been a good supporter of Pilma, and you've helped a lot of our members over the years. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Till next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.